Hello and welcome to this video where I want to talk a little bit about the future of data science coding. Many data scientists and scientists in general are using Jupyter notebooks for coding. And today I want to talk a little bit how we can leverage Jupyter notebooks and go beyond them to create even better and nicer code. But let's start at the beginning. Chapter 1. The bad, the good, and the notebook. Jupyter notebooks are really nice to create interactive visualizations, but also creating dashboards or just show your analysis to anybody. They're nice for educational purposes. This is why I personally like to use them a lot. They're also really nice for creating a quick and dirty proof of concept because they are nice to create interactive development processes. I don't have to have everything always running from top to bottom. I can just execute a code, add here data, add here a plot. Jupyter notebooks are really flexible. And that's the biggest advantage, but also it's a problem. Jupyter notebooks give you so much flexibility that they lead to a lot of bad practice. Don't get me wrong. You can not have these bad practices while being in a Jupyter notebook, but it encourages you to not follow best practices. For example, if I'm creating my proof of concept in a Jupyter notebook, I'm just really working on it, like coding here, hacking there, then it happens that I'm executing my cells out of order. And what happens is people share their Jupyter notebooks without first rerunning the complete Jupyter notebook from top to bottom. And this means that the Jupyter notebook basically doesn't work unless you execute them in exactly the same way they did. Even worse, because Jupyter notebooks rely on a hidden state, so the previously executed things, a user might even delete a cell they have executed, but still rely on this execution without knowing. For example, they could have assigned a variable and they will never get a warning. And then there are smaller things. For example, people tend to write one long Jupyter notebook instead of splitting it up in multiple things and importing maybe functionality from other files. Like Jupyter notebooks really don't let people get the best software engineering side out of them. Lastly, there are things like version control, which is quite hard to do with a Jupyter notebook if you do not convert it, as if you rerun the Jupyter notebook, it changes its output, which is then shown on Git or GitHub, which is really hard to follow. Other things like code formatters or really nice type checks are not easily usable in Jupyter notebooks. Again, I know they are possible, but it's not as simple as, for example, doing these things in VS Code or NeoVim. So let me just reiterate this. You can do everything in Jupyter Notebook. All of these problems are just problems of how they are used. And still, I think going beyond the Jupyter Notebook and using more a text editor together with Jupyter will help you to not fall into these pitfalls. Chapter 2. Now, the solution might be obvious to some, and you will see it already being in the internet, but I think it's not heavily adopted yet. The solution is, in my personal opinion, using a normal Python script together with some convention, like the hydrogen convention, to make this normal script executable like a Jupyter notebook, but still editing it in your IDE or your text editor so that you have to make it linearly executable and do not rely on a hidden state. So how can we do this? We can do this very easily, for example in VS Code or in NeoVim. We just add to our script these comments, here hashtag %% to indicate that this is a cell up to the next hashtag %%. Now I can open a Jupyter console and using just a key binding, send this cell of code to the Jupyter console. There it's executed and I still have all the execution power I had in Jupyter Notebook, but with the advantage that I can actually see all of my executions. So the previously hidden state is now visible to you. Now you might think, okay, you can add a cell to a script. Is that all? This is not all, because this is actually a very old concept, which you can do like since years in so many languages. But the nice thing is, this is now developed as far that you can do so many things if you leverage Jupyter notebooks or Jupyter itself using these scripts. For example, I can just add this to make this a markdown cell. Just bracket, markdown, bracket, and I'm done. Okay, Now, what if I, for example, want to hide the input, like the code I written, or hide the output, so the output of the code, if I render my script into a website? Then I can do this just adding these tags. And yes, you heard me correctly. I can use this normal script and just render it using Jupyter Book, so something developed for Jupyter Notebooks, to create websites, which I can just host on GitHub Pages for free. And using this, I can create these beautiful things where you have like an interactive flow of how your code looks like. I can hide code if I want to. I can show only the outputs, and people can now click on it and see, oh, that's what they have done. Or for example, I can create these tagged lines where you can basically click through my plots in a tag line and they always show depending on the condition I want to show. But yeah, I get sidetracked. Back to our task. How can we actually accomplish this? Well, as I said, I just create a script, follow a convention, for example, the hydrogen convention of hashtag %%. Now I can execute it in my console. But what if I want to actually convert the script into a Jupyter notebook or later even a website? For this, I can leverage other tools. Chapter 3, rendering your script. Now enter the wonderful world of Jupytext. Jupytext is a package that's created for you to actually convert your notebooks into normal text or normal scripts like normal text into notebooks. But that's not all. Like while I can do this, like I can convert one to the other, I can also even link them. Meaning if I change my script, a notebook also changes or the other way around. This means you personally can develop in what you like more. Like for example, I would develop in the script, but you could also use the Jupyter notebook, then render the other one and use this for your advantage. For example, if you want to use version control, I think the best thing to use version control together with the Jupyter notebook is linking your Jupyter notebook to a script. You work in the notebook, but then you only push the script to Git. But as I said, I personally prefer to actually develop the script because now I have all the power of my IDE or of my text editor NeoVim to check it, check my code, is it executable, do I have some variables used before assignment, and all of these nice things. I can use snippets, I can use everything. So this is really wonderful. It's so nice to use as a development environment, and I can still have everything from Jupyter notebooks. Now, you might ask, how do I now get to this website thing? Well, that's actually quite easy. If you don't want all the features of it, you can just use Jupytext, convert your script to now another format, for example, Jupyter Notebook, and then add some boilerplate for the Jupyter Book. And now you can just create the Jupyter Book. If you want to host it, you just use GitHub Pages tools to export them to a branch on your GitHub repository, which can now be seen from everyone. If you want even more functionality, what I wanted, then you can, for example, just convert your script into a markdown file. I use my own personal tool for that because, to be honest, I didn't get all the functionality for Jupyter Book when using Jupytext. This might be outdated. There might be possibilities. I didn't find them, so I just use it. It was quite easy to do. And this is basically it. I know it seems like not a lot to get your Jupyter notebook and put it into a script. And some might say, well, why is that so important for the future? I think this is important for the future because this means not only that you can use all the power from your IDE, but also that the gap between doing analysis and creating software packages for analysis is getting smaller and smaller. What I've seen is that quite a lot of people working in research or in data science get at some point to a level where they have to create their own packages in Python or own folders and files and scripts to support their analyses. And if you get at this level, you cannot do everything that easily in Jupyter notebooks, at least. But you can do them in the IDE. So now the gap between working on my software package and doing my analysis is so tiny because I use the same tools for everything. And this, I think, gives us as data scientists a fluency and flexibility between tools that we can leverage so much to get beyond of what we are doing right now. But of course, this is only my opinion. You can disagree, for example, in the comment section, or agree, whatever you want. But I hope you liked this video and see you soon.